Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a really fascinating case out of Japan.
Hmm.
There's this guy, right, caught modifying Nintendo Switches, selling them on. But the punishment he got, it feels, well, almost like a slap on the wrist compared to some other big piracy
Yeah,
cases.
that's what immediately jumps out, isn't it? The sheer difference.
We're diving into the story of Fumihiro Otobe. Apparently, the first person in Japan actually convicted for this specific thing, modifying and selling Switches.
Right.
And comparing his sentence to, say, Gary Bowser, it's kind of mind-boggling, frankly.
It really is. We've been looking at a piece from PC Gamer on this, and it just makes you think, doesn't it? About how Nintendo and the courts approach these things. It's not always the same.
Absolutely not. So that's our mission for this deep dive. Really get into the details of Otobi's case. Why was the punishment, relatively light?
Hmm.
And how does it stack up against those huge Nintendo busts we hear more about?
It really shows there are layers here. Modifying a console isn't just one single activity, right? The scale, the intent,
Yeah.
that seems to matter a lot.
Okay, right. So let's start with the man himself. Fumihiro Otobe.
Okay.
He's 58, works as a transportation worker, lives in Rigasaki City, though the case was heard down in Kochi District Court.
Got it.
And the charges were pretty specific. Modifying secondhand Nintendo Switches and then selling them preloaded with pirated games.
And the method wasn't just like software, right?
Oh,
It was actually
wow.
getting in there, soldering the circuit board.
Exactly. Physically altering the hardware to let it run, non-approved stuff.
That's quite involved. Requires some skill.
Definitely. And when the police searched his place back in January, they found 4 of these modified Switches.
Only 4. Okay.
Yeah, only 4 mentioned. But here's the kicker. He apparently confessed immediately.
Oh.
And his reason, get this, I'm quoting, "I was curious if people would think I was great for selling modified machines."
Wait, what? That's an unusual motivation.
Isn't it? Not, "I wanted to make millions," but more like seeking admiration. It's odd.
Yeah, it almost sounds like, I don't know, a hobby that got out of hand. Or just wanting some kind of weird validation, less like a serious criminal enterprise.
Which seems to fit the scale, maybe. He was selling these things online for about 28,000 yen.
Okay, what's that in US dollars?
Roughly 195 USD, give or take. And each one came loaded with 27 pirated games already installed.
Yeah, okay. 27 games. Now, the value there could be anything, right? Some might be old, basically free. Others could be full $60, $70 titles.
Exactly. And you can see, maybe, why someone might buy it. A brand new Switch is what, $300?
Around that, yeah. And the Switch 2 is rumored to be even pricier, maybe $450.
So, $195 for a console plus nearly 30 games. It looks like a deal on the surface, even if it's obviously not above board.
Morally gray at best, illegal at worst.
Yeah,
But yeah, you can see the appeal for some buyers.
totally. But let's get to the sentence. This is the bit that really stands out.
Right. What did he actually get?
A fine of 500,000 yen. So that's about $3,500 USD.
Okay. $3,500. And jail time.
2 years in prison, but
Yeah.
suspended for 3 years.
Ah, suspended. So basically, stay out of trouble for 3 years, and he probably doesn't actually go inside.
Exactly, which feels remarkably light, doesn't it, considering the activity?
It does seem that way, especially when you think about other cases. So why so lenient, do we think?
Uh,
The article suggests it was probably the small scale, right?
that seems like the most obvious factor. Selling just a few consoles, it doesn't scream criminal mastermind.
Feels more like that hobby tampering phrase the article used. Someone tinkering, maybe making a bit of cash, but not running a massive piracy ring.
Precisely. And that's where the Gary Bowser comparison just slams into focus.
Oh yeah, big time. Reminds us about Bowser.
Okay, so Gary Bowser, he was a major player in Team Executor, the group creating and selling the actual mod ships, the tools that enabled all this piracy on a huge scale.
Right, he wasn't just modifying a few consoles himself. He was part of the supply chain for the modding tools.
Exactly. Sentenced back in 2022. And his sentence,
It was big, I remember that.
40 months in actual prison time and a fine of $14.5 million.
$16.5 million.
Let that sink in. Otobe's $3,500 fine, the article calculates it's like 400,000% less than Bowser's.
400,000%. That's an incredible difference. I mean, it really highlights the distinction they're making.
It has to be about the scale, right?
Yeah.
Bowser and his group were facilitating piracy worldwide, potentially costing Nintendo maybe hundreds of millions. Otobe sold maybe a handful of consoles.
Yeah, the impact is just orders of magnitude different. Bowser was enabling mass infringement. Otobe's actions, while illegal, were comparatively tiny in their direct effect. The law likely sees creating and distributing the tools as a much, much more serious offense. It strikes at the core of their IP protection.
And you can't help but notice the name, right? Bowser, like Nintendo's biggest villain.
Ah, yeah,
Hmm.
it's probably just a coincidence, but it is pretty memorable, isn't it? A slightly dark bit of irony there.
Definitely adds a layer.
But back to the technical side for a second. The article mentioned that even with the mod chips, doing the modification involves super finicky soldering.
Right, so it wasn't just plug and play or running a simple program. It took actual delicate hardware work.
Which again maybe speaks to Otobe's motivation, more about the challenge, the can I do this
Mhm.
aspect,
Yeah.
than just pure profit. Still illegal, but different vibe.
Perhaps. It suggests a certain level of technical engagement beyond just wanting to pirate games easily.
And just to kind of round out the picture of what Nintendo's been up to legally,
Mm.
the article touches on other things too. There was that big French piracy case mentioned.
Yeah, with consequences across the whole EU, that sounded pretty significant, likely targeting a larger operation again.
Exactly. Seems to fit the pattern. Go after the bigger fish, the distributors.
Then there was that weird story about smuggling NVIDIA chips. Alleged smuggling, I should say. High bail set there, showing how seriously that kind of tech issue is taken.
Mm-hmm. Different area, but high stakes tech.
And remember the Super Mario supermarket in Costa Rica? Still battling Nintendo, I think.
Oh, right. The name dispute.
Yeah. And even the whole Pal World thing. Reports about Nintendo maybe losing some patent claims in the US related to it, and the Pal World community manager talking about bracing for a lawsuit.
So lots of legal activity on various fronts for Nintendo. But if we bring it all together,
Yeah.
what's the main takeaway here?
It really seems like Nintendo picks its battles, and the scale is key. Their legal hammer comes down hardest on the large-scale operations, the ones creating and distributing the tools, the Bowsers of the world.
Whereas individual smaller scale modders like Otobe,
Mhm.
well, they still face consequences, fines, maybe a suspended sentence like he got,
Yeah.
but it's nowhere near the same level.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast, isn't it? Two guys both messing with Switches in ways Nintendo doesn't like. One gets a $3,500 fine and avoids jail. The other gets years in prison and a multi-million-dollar bill.
Really underlines that difference between maybe personal curiosity or a very small side hustle versus organized commercial piracy that threatens their whole business model.
So it leaves us with a thought, doesn't it, for everyone listening?
Yeah.
When you see these huge companies like Nintendo choosing their legal targets,
Mm.
what does it tell us?
Yeah. What really drives those decisions?
Mm.
Is it purely the financial damage? Is it the intent behind the actions? The scale? Maybe a mix of all three.
It makes you think about how intellectual property is protected and enforced in this digital age. What factors really tip the scales towards those multi-million-dollar lawsuits versus, well, something much smaller, something to mull over?